Hey everybody, Dave Hagan here. Today I want to talk about CalSavers. And what's that, you ask? Well, it's kind of like a compulsory retirement plan that just took effect here in California. Is it a great idea or just more bureaucracy? That's today on the Financial Wellness Podcast.
Welcome to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. Here is your host, financial problem solver and talk show host, Dave Hagan.
Thank you, Nick, and welcome everyone to TFWP, another interesting episode here this morning. We're coming to you from beautiful downtown Van Nuys, just outside of Hollywood, and oh my, it's Brian Reed.
How's it going, Dave?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy Saturday.
Hey, same to you. You gotta love Saturdays, right? Because you got a whole nother day after that.
Exactly.
My wife just recently stopped working, and she said that her new favorite day of the week is
every day?
Monday, because everyone has to go to work. and she looked at me right in the eye and she says, my favorite day of the week is, or my least favorite day is Friday. And I said, well, why is that? She says, because you're going to be around for the next 2 days. So I don't know what that's all about, but kind of interesting. Well, today I want to talk about this new law in California. It's called CalSavers, and it just took effect just recently this month. And it's going to set up a kind of a forced savings or retirement, or potentially a forced savings or retirement for a number of businesses and a number of employees. So it kind of works like this. Any businesses with over 5 employees, and it's going to be phased in over the next several years, but by 2020 or so, it's going to be more than 5 employees. And a business that doesn't have a plan in place, so that's a pension or a 401k or one of those types of plans for their employees, they are going to be put into a plan, a CalSavers plan, and it's kind of like a forced IRA. So the company has to register with the state and say, hey, I've got this many employees and this is what we're doing, and we're either going to participate or we're exempt because we're less than 5 or because we have a plan in place. And then they're going to set this up. They're going to give every employee's name and social security number. So this is kind of like registering people. And they're going to set up basically a Roth IRA for each person. So we talked about Roth IRAs last week. Remember, it's after-tax money, and it's put into a retirement account. And if you follow the requirements, it'll be tax-free later on. So the new law is going to require every employer to enroll every one of their employees. And after they've registered everybody, it's also going to be part of an employee onboarding process. So if employers don't do this, they can be fined $250 to $500 for every employee if they don't register or bring somebody in. It's a whole new level of bureaucracy that's going to have to be put together. It's similar to plans that have been enacted in Connecticut and Maryland and Oregon and Seattle. I guess Seattle must think it's a state, huh, Brian? They've got their own way of doing things up there. And it'll be administered by Ascensius College Record Keeping Services, ACRS, and they're going to be the ones that are kind of overseeing this whole system. I just saw an article in the LA Times where someone in the state legislature was crowing that, this won't cost the state a penny. Well, I don't know. I think it will, because you've got to have this registering process, and if people don't withhold, now you've got a whole nother situation. It's not going to be free of charge. Nothing is usually completely free or effortless, but they're going to charge a fee of about 0.8, 0.9%. That's this ACRS group, and you will be able to invest in a choice of funds. And I looked at the different funds that they have, and it's really a broad set of funds. There's a capital preservation fund, a bond fund, global equity fund, sustainable balance fund, and several target funds. And what might you ask are target funds? Those are funds that say, hey, we're going to have all your money ready to go in 2040 or 2050 because that's the year that you intend to retire. And you pick a fund that's set to close out or to give you your money during that period of time. So I don't know, this starts to sound pretty good, starts to look pretty good, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a withholding and remitting requirement for employers, for anybody that has 5 or more employees, and for anyone that doesn't necessarily have a fund. So I'm sure it's unclear at this point how they're going to make sure that everybody does that, how they're going to choose or chase people that don't do this. But on the face of it, I don't know. It took effect. They ran a pilot program. They found that people were much more inclined to participate in a plan like this when it was part of their employee withholding. There was a study done at Cal Berkeley, and the results of their study said that people were 15 times more likely to participate in a plan when it was set up this way. Not 15% more, but 15 times more likely to participate. However, at the end of the day, you've got the government looking over your shoulder going, hey, you got to have this kind of plan. You need to participate in this plan. And you've got employers that have yet another thing to do. Oh, one other factor is every employee must be signed up, and they will initially take 5% out of their check. That's 5% after tax, so it's more like 7 or 8% of their check. And it's going to be sent, out for investment in this Roth IRA. Now, an employee can opt out. They can opt out, and I think that that's an important thing to remember. Once they're signed up, they can opt out. But again, a whole nother level of things to do for employers, whether they're registering all their people initially or onboarding somebody else, and a whole nother level of things to do in terms of remitting or taking the money out and then remitting this money, another interaction with your payroll service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Here at the TFWP, we love savings. I mean, that's such a great thing. And last time we were talking about Roth IRAs and how that's pretty cool. After-tax money that's not taxed later on. And I like the fact that, employees can opt out. And I like the fact that it's portable. Someone can take the money with them when they leave. And I like the fact that down the line, someone can take their money out, tax-free when they retire. I like the fact that because it's a Roth IRA, if someone wants, or not wants, but needs some money for some emergency, they could draw some of that money out, at least the contribution portion out, tax-free. But the other side of the coin is, are we really going to put another burden on business? It's getting tougher and tougher to do business in California. Brian, what do you think?
So far, I'm okay with this, I think.
All right.
Smaller companies, I'm not saying that they have less responsibilities or less to do, but if a person doesn't have any kind of a retirement vehicle set up and they haven't taken the initiative to do it, and now they're going to have to get one, regardless of wherever you go to work. Mm-hmm. If it's got more than 5 people at the company, then it's someone reminding them to save. Now, of course, the government wants this done because they don't want to have to pay for us later on in life. They want us to already have our own money saved up.
Right. Of course, my response to that is nobody is without a retirement. Because we've all got Social Security, that great Social Security. They're getting 15% every year, and then they're going to provide us with money when we retire that covers about 40% of what we need. I mean, we got this great Social Security plan. What about that?
Yeah, let's drop the sarcasm and stay on point. That's a whole nother topic.
We spent a podcast on that, and after we kind of pulled the curtain away from that, It left me a little bitter, frankly.
I can tell.
15% ought to let you retire in a gold-plated car, for goodness sake.
A gold-plated Tesla?
Gold-plated Tesla car, even better. I like that. So maybe the additional benefit to business or the additional burden to business is worth the potential benefit.
That's what the government will say. You guys take care of it.
Yeah, push it off to somebody else. I mean, I like the fact at least that the government is not investing the money. I think that there's huge inefficiencies potentially there. I like the fact that it's something that's portable and you can take. But, I mean, I don't know. All the stuff you have to go through to onboard
who's making
somebody?
the decisions about these funds?
The employee. So you get to pick. I'm sure there's going to have, there's going to be a fund that's like...
Aren't they going to pick from funds that are selected from all the funds that are out there? They're going to have a choice of 15. So who's choosing, for example, those 15 funds?
Well, that's true. Who's controlling the size of the walled garden? And I think that, that's set up by the state of California and in conjunction with the people that are going to be administering this. So yeah, the walled garden is going to be chosen by somebody else, but once you're inside, I guess you get to pick. Now maybe that's a false, choice, right? But
it's your choice of the options that we give you.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, maybe that's a potential downside. I mean, I think that some of these funds are going to be like, friendly environmental investments or something like that. And if someone wants to limit their financial future based upon that, good for them. But I don't know. I wouldn't. Although I wouldn't.
Isn't that kind of like saying, you can go to any doctor just as long as the doctor is within the network?
Oh, don't start with me. Don't start with me with healthcare. Oh, that's a raw nerve.
I'm just hitting all the nerves on you today.
You are just really hitting it hard. But I mean, I think you raise a pretty important point. It's something that I frankly hadn't even thought about. But if your choices are limited, of course, I guess really at the end of the day, as long as those funds are returning a reasonable rate of return, and there's not a fund that says we return even higher than that because we pollute the earth, I guess any of the choices are okay. I mean, there's a very broad range. I was surprised, the range of choices. But you're right. You're exactly right. The administrator is chosen, and the funds that are in the garden are chosen.
But on the flip side, maybe this gets the concept of savings into kids' heads earlier when they have their first job.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. If there's they're told, by the way, this is going to happen. You can opt out later, but it starts. It sounds like it starts, and then you choose to say, take me out, versus, hey, you have the option to do this. Do you want to do it?
Right. Maybe it's just easier to get people to do it if it's taken out of their check. I don't know. I think that maybe that's a little demeaning to people, saying, hey, you can't, we can't trust you to make that choice. We're going to make that choice for you. I would hope that with more people thinking about this long term, more people hopefully listening to TFWP, that they go, hey, I want to put something in place. I want to sit down with a CFP or somebody like that because I want to put together a long term plan. That would start to resolve the situation more with individual choice and less with Big Brother and big business looking over your shoulder.
If they plant the seed early enough and it gets taken care of for people for a while by somebody else, and then eventually they go, you know what, wait a minute, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Then it sounds like they have every right to pull that money out, to opt out of the program, and then they can just go do it themselves.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think a lot of this depends upon, what a person's view of the role of government is, or the role of business. Is it business's role to take care of your healthcare needs and your retirement needs, and as long as you're there, or is that something that someone should be a little more responsible about? I don't know. I'm still in shock or reacting to when I opened up the envelope for my very first paycheck And it was like in high school, and I was working fast food. And I calculated the number of hours that I worked with my hourly pay, and I pulled out the check to look at it, and I said, "Hey, who took my damn money?" You know, it's a shock.
Who's this FICA guy?
Yeah, I don't even know FICA. I don't want him to get no money. I mean, it was brutal. It was a shock. It was, I'm still I'm reacting to it, but. I also think that...
It's 3 nerves we've hit today.
I know. I think it depends upon someone's view of, how they want the government to treat them. I mean, there are some people that I've talked to that said, look, I just want to show up for my job, and I want the government to take care of, all my other needs, my health care, my retirement, my whatever. I don't want to have to think about it. And I guess if there's enough people in society with that thought process... well, maybe this is the perfect thing. Although I think there's a lot of people, too, that want to be, masters of their own destiny, and this might rub them the wrong way. Although I guess, again, they can always opt out. And they've had the very deliberate process of, hey, you know what? I need to put into my daily or not daily, but monthly spending plan the fact that I need to sequester some money, deploy some money, if you will, for retirement.
I think I'm okay with this. I like people getting their first paycheck and seeing that a little money has been taken out. And guess what? They're going to survive without it. So why wouldn't they just leave it in? If it's just, and just then they'll get statements and, oh, look at that. I have some money saved up.
Right. Well, now you're hitting another raw nerve because, in years past, we've paid a payroll, and a payroll is a major pain in the neck. How many hours and make sure the deductions are appropriate and people getting the right amount. And then you've got the withholding for this and for that. And now you got a whole nother level. And, we didn't have a big payroll. We maybe had 7, 8, 9, 10 employees, but it took up a lot of time. It was a pain in the neck. And there's companies that will help you with that. ADP for one, not that I'm plugging anybody. We use somebody else actually, but there are companies out there that, will help you with that. But at some point, you take all of that withholding, you take all of the service for doing that, you take the workers' compensation, you take all the, now we have overtime and sick days and blah, 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 blah. You spend more money kind of counting the chalk marks on the chalkboard than you do getting stuff done. That's just my perspective, but that's another raw nerve.
It's not enough hours in the day.
I guess. But 2 very different perspectives. And I'm not saying necessarily I'm against it. I'm just really concerned that there are so many things that we're putting on businesses that it makes it less desirable to do business, frankly, in California. It's one of the reasons that I think that a lot of businesses are moving, even though it's, in my mind, one of the best states around,
You're not biased at all, are you, Dave?
Well, I was born here, so it's pretty cool, but the freeways were a lot less crowded back in the day, just saying. And the requirements were less. I don't know. Now, there's a lot of people that are predicting that this is going to flop, and I mean, maybe it will, or maybe this will provide a, kind of a renaissance in terms of thinking for people. And a number of people will start to, to save in these Roth IRAs and be a good for them in the long term. I don't know. We'll see. So I don't know. To sum up, CalSavers, a new law just taking effect, and it's going to be basically a Roth IRA kind of experience for employees of businesses that have ultimately 5 employees or more, and that don't have any other kind of retirement plan available. Is it a great progressive idea or just another bureaucratic boondoggle? Time will tell. We'll keep an eye on this and report back down the road. This is Dave Hagan, and you've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. As an additional bonus, each month, Dave will randomly draw from the submitted questions and pick the winner of a free 1-hour personal conversation with Dave to help you achieve your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications. Let's listen in now as Dave answers some emails.
All right, Brian's got one right there in his hand. Brian.
All right, Dave. We have an email here from Skip who writes in, Dave, I am age 40, married, have a wife and 2 children. I want to retire at 60 if possible. I have my emergency fund, thanks to you, and I have $20,000 in the bank. Should I get a financial advisor? Thanks, Skip.
Skip, I definitely would get a financial advisor. I think that more and more people should do that at this point, especially as we start to deal with more of our retirement obligations and handle those ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I love it. You want to retire at 60. That's really cool. That's an aggressive goal. And I think if you deploy your dollars wisely and keep your expenses in control, I think that that's something that you could specifically do, especially if you're starting out at 40. A lot of people don't start thinking about retirement at 40. They start talking about retirement at about 59 and a half. So I think that that's a good thing. Now, you could do a lot of time studying, reading books, doing things like that, and kind of sketch something out on your own. Or you could get with a financial advisor, someone who would kind of act as your coach, someone who's got some specific knowledge in the area of investments and retirement devices and taxation, those kinds of things. Those folks aren't particularly expensive to come by, but they are folks that can really benefit you in the long term. It kind of seems to me that even when you're younger than 40, you can get a hold of a financial advisor. Put together some kind of a long-term plan taking you all the way to retirement and beyond. And then meet with them periodically, maybe just for, a lunch, a get-together every couple of years, and just pull out the plan and say, hey, how are we moving ahead on this? What's changed? Things will change. It's like I heard someone tell a story about you get on an airplane to go from L.A. to New York. Well, you're going to change your way to get there several times during the course of that flight due to wind patterns and et cetera, et cetera. But the ultimate goal will remain the same. That is landing safely in New York. And I think it's the same thing with getting to your retirement and beyond. Your plan may change over the years, but you need someone that will help you put together that plan and then meet periodically with you to make sure that you're on board. Or that your plan needs to change a little bit or what have you. So I think this person is part, advisor, part coach, part financial person. But I think it'd be a good idea. I mean, when you sit down with them and you're young, you spend on a CFP or establishing a relationship with an accountant, $1,000 or $2 to get you where you want to be ultimately. That seems like it's cheap. And to meet with them every 2, 3, 4, 5 years for lunch for an hour and a half, that seems pretty cheap. Although, make sure they pick up the tab for lunch, right, Brian? But I think that this is part of the group of people that should be in our lives on a go-forward basis like this, because the last thing you want to be is at 59 and a half and going, why? I guess I should think about retirement. You hear a lot of people say, well, I'm going to work forever. And people can certainly work a lot longer now than they could before, but you can't work forever. And unless you love in an extreme way what you do, you're gonna want to have some retirement. So, Skip, you're starting young, you're early, you're doing well. You've already got the marriage, you've already got the 2 kids, you've got the emergency fund. That's huge. You're ahead of most. And pat on the back. Retire at 60, very doable potentially. But I would get with, an accountant, and not just someone that does tax returns, but an accountant that will sit down with you and have some very deliberate, thoughtful discussions with you, or a CFP. That's an area of professionalism that's expanding dramatically these days. I know that they even have a certificate program over at like UCLA, for example, these days. So there's some really good people out there, and I would check that out. So that's what I would do, Skip. Spend a little bit of money so you can have a whole bunch of money, and that's you'll be happy that you did. All right, we got time for one more email. Brian?
Here's one from Samuel, and he writes in, Dear Dave, I'm 35 years old, single, and have no kids. And I have an extremely well-paying job. I'm frankly making more money right now than I can spend, but it might not last a whole bunch of years more. I don't want to miss out on any planning opportunities. Any thoughts? Thanks, Sam.
Well, Sam, I guess the first question that I would have is, what team do you play for? I mean, this sounds
something
like,
that has a short shelf life.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds like a quintessential athlete or entertainer, you know. And how great is that to be able to say straight up, I'm making more money than I can spend. Yeah, definitely some advice. You know, what I would do is not spend all of that money, resist the temptation to buy the super big car and the what have you. And by the way, have you ever gone by the parking lot at Dodger Stadium, Brian, on the way to a game?
No, never seen it.
Oh, man, it's like all fenced off, and it's like all the young guys, they got all these amazing cars, you know, the low, sleek black cars and the big 4x4s with the, 500 horsepower jobbies. They have to fence it off to keep people away from all those nice cars because everybody else is driving Toyota Junkers and the Nissan or the Datsun or something. Pretty amazing. But, Samuel, what I would do is try and resist that. Obviously, get a nice car. You're enjoying some success, but don't spend all of it on cars. Don't spend all of it on house, and realize that what a unique situation that you're in. And if you adopt a reasonable lifestyle, you can save the rest of that and think about what kind of income for the rest of your life that money can yield to you. And it would certainly make the balance of your life a whole lot easier if you got some income coming in on a fairly regular basis. It cracks me up where I hear about running backs, for example, Brian. They say, well, I need to get paid this kind of money because my career will only last 5 years, which is true. A running back is only going to last 5-6 years typically in the NFL. But my thought is, okay, but what about the rest of your life? Just because you had this fantasy dream job and you made a whole bunch of money, that doesn't mean that you only have to work or contribute for 5 years, But if you got a whole bunch of money and you're getting some income on that, it sure gives you a lot more opportunity or flexibility to do other things that you want to do. But you're going to have to realize that your lifestyle might not always be, an all-star first baseman or what have you. So I think there's some thinking and some thought process there. We've seen so many professional athletes, and I'm kind of honing in on athletes here, not entertainers, but they're used to living that lifestyle. They're used to going out with the fellas after the game. They're used to driving the big car or living in the Beverly Hills. And when it all stops real suddenly, and it's hard for them to liquidate, their lifestyle to something a little more modest and to deal with that. And I get that. All your life, someone tells you you're great, you're amazing, and all of a sudden you're retired, and all you can do is shoot commercials. And that's a pretty tough time in someone's life. That's a pretty tough transition. But if you've thought about it, and if you have planned for it, maybe that will make it, make it a little bit easier. I think in the sports realm, a lot of these players now have pretty strong unions, and they're making contribution to those unions, and those unions are providing for a lot of the former players, but certainly not to the level that they were used to living. And certainly you can't expect the union to take care of you for the rest of your life. So my hat's off to you, Samuel. You're thinking about this. You're thinking about this long term. I think you said you're 35, and if that's the case, you're probably coming towards the end of your career, which probably prompted the email, by the way, right? And you've got an opportunity still to do some things. So don't focus on denying yourself some of the extra compensation that you're earning. But I think if you focus on what the income off of that money saved could do for the entire rest of your life, you'd be motivated in terms of how you might turn that around to your benefit. So there you have it. Hey, write in and you don't need to. Well, you told us your first name, but
I wonder if that's his real name.
I don't know. I
don't think I bet you it isn't.
Maybe this is this maybe like Joe Montana or something? Joe's older than that. Who's the quarterback for the Rams? Oh no, he's a kid. He's not 35.
Somebody.
What's his name? Goff?
Jared Goff?
Jared Goff. Yeah, I think that's his name. He's a young kid. I don't know that he might not only be 25 yet even. Running back for the Rams? No.
What if the writer's name was Baker?
Baker, well, that'd be a whole nother
Baker Mayfield.
Be a whole nother level of analysis. Yeah, I mean, some of these guys, they come out and they're expecting they get the big signing bonus and this and that, and they don't translate well for whatever reason to the NFL, and that's got to be pretty tough too, And then some of these guys, what was the guy who played with the quarterback for the Cardinals? Years back, and he came out and he played and played and played and played, never really got a shot, and then before you know it, he's winning the Super Bowl. Remember that? What was the name of that fella? About 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Hey, if you're a listener and you remember, send us an email and go, hey guys.
Who was that guy?
It was Sidney Whipplestein or somebody like that.
I would remember a quarterback named Sidney Whipplestein.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, what a great feel-good story. I mean, a guy just hanging in there and playing until he's able to actually make it happen. How cool is that? But that's probably the exception, not the rule. So good work, Samuel. Keep it up. And hopefully you're put together enough money so that your retirement from your sport, apparently, will be good and comfortable, and you can do a lot of other things. All right, I think that's all the time that we have. This is Dave Hagan, Brian Reed, and you've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Remember, Dave will randomly draw from the submitted questions and pick the winner of a free 1-hour personal conversation with Dave to help you achieve your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications, or share the podcast via the app with your family and friends. This is your announcer, Nick Appel, wishing you every financial success.